Hey, Fred, thank you for coming in. You're doing really amazing work. Every time I'm searching the web, I see you keynoting a conference, or you're on the panel at a conference, or you're being profiled by media. And that's because literally AI for good is the biggest thing that's ever happened in terms of tech for good, and really working towards having AI being sustainable and enabling, empowering, and so on. And you're the man behind it. I mean, you're the head of strategy, you're the head of operations for AI for Good. You're the creator behind it. Just marvelous work. So thank you for coming in.
Thanks, Stephen, and great to be here. And also, I have to say, I can't do this alone. So if it wasn't for, a group of key, stakeholders, partners helping us from the beginning when, AI was just kind of a buzzword. And instead of being the news, we're trying to make the news around it. We had people like yourself, Stephen, and other partners really helping us in the beginning and still helping us now. So very kind words, but I can't take all of the credit. So thanks to you as well for all of your help.
Well, Fred, I know you combine all of these sort of different degrees you have. You got like several masters, this undergrad, and you got this. You have your music background as well, and I see that infused into the program. And you've built communities as well in your background. You're bringing these all together. So, my first question is, how are you able to manage all of these different pieces of who you are, and how do they reflect into your work now for AI for Good?
That's a good question. And I like to think of it almost as cross training, right? Where if you have your finger or in different areas or have different areas of interest, it might not be evident at the beginning that there's any linkages between them. I certainly didn't think so when I, basically spent hours and hours learning the craft of music with drumming or different sports or passions I have. Or travel or all these different interests, but then you find that with your work, there's this kind of like cross fertilization that happens. I wish I could say it was by design, but now I sort of have the benefit of hindsight to see that it can help. So, what one really good example is music. So, I've been a musician since basically the age of 12, and when we were creating AI for good, a lot of the narrative at the time was very much fear based. It was, is AI going to take our jobs? Are we going to become irrelevant? Is there going to be a two-class society? What's going to happen? And I had a keen interest in how AI was being used by different artists and musicians to basically push their limits of creativity and human performance. And so I brought together a bunch of different profiles, some musicians, some drummers, some people in the visual arts, sculptors, poets, trying to cover all of the arts, if you will. And they could argue that they would be the first to be replaced. I mean, if you look at, for example, generative AI now with image generation and music generation, with a click of a button, you can create, what looks like an art piece or a piece of music. So they have a lot to lose, but they were showing our audience how instead of fearing the technology, they were using the technology to create new forms of art and push their limits of performance to levels that were just unbelievable. And then if the audience could see that, then all of a sudden they might think differently about job replacement and all this kind of fear-based scenarios. They're like, well, if they can do it, how should I think about how AI is going to influence my work or my business or the way I collaborate with people? So I like to think that, maybe it was just a lucky coincidence that I had such a keen interest in music and that brought all these artists to the summit. But more importantly, it helped to shift and change the narrative around AI from a kind of fear-based narrative to a narrative of possibilities and creativity.
Well, it's really quite amazing. In fact, I think the arts part is a big attractor now. It's like a spotlight at the AI for Good Summit, but in your programming and all the work you do. So, can you talk about what you're planning for next year and maybe give us a little bit of a sneak peek of what all the excitement is about? I know this year in 2023 and at the AI for Good Summit, but you have daily programming. It was just amazing. And I had invited some investors there and CEOs, and I mean, it was like 100%. They were just amazed. They just loved it. So what can they look forward to for 2024? Because I'm inviting even more of my friends to come and take a look and to support it in any way they can.
Well, to use another music analogy, you're only as good as your last album, or you don't want to be a one-hit wonder, let's say. I'd like to think we've had more than one hit. I mean, we had the first summit, that was back in 2017. The second one doubled in size, the third one doubled in size, and then of course COVID hit, and then we thought, well, what do we do now? And rather than wait for blue skies and see what would happen, no one knew if a pandemic would last a month, 2 months, or 2 years. We just went straight ahead and put our program online. So now we're doing something in the order of 150 online events per year. And last year, or this year rather, we also went back to a physical summit as well. So now it's 150 online events a year plus a physical summit, supported by a number of collaboration efforts in the form of AI startup pitching competitions, machine learning challenges, standards work, more collaboration effort with the UN. So one of our hashtags is actually more than a summit, in the sense that some people often think of the 2-3 days that you're in Geneva because that's where they discovered AI for good. But that's kind of the cherry on the cake if you look at all the activity we're doing around that. Having said that, we're still trying to outdo ourselves. So this year, apart from the world-class program where we had Yuval Harari, Werner Vogels, we had DeepMind, we had Ray Kurzweil, I mean, all of them headliners in their own right. We also we wanted to create experiences where people could basically see and touch the technology. So we had over 60 robots at the summit, and we have the world's first humanoid robot press conference where we got 9 humanoid robots lined up in front of media for a Q&A. What could go wrong, right? So actually we took a bit of a risk there, and the goal of that wasn't to say robots are good or bad or what have you. It was just to say, no, look, this is where we are. These are the capabilities of robots. These are the limitations, and then just have media ask questions. And I thought the coverage was actually quite interesting and quite balanced, and it went viral as well. So not easy for a conference to go viral, but that piece of news was everywhere. So next year, the format is going to be, I'd say, quite similar. I mean, we'll have our big keynotes on stage. We have the SDG stage, the Robotics for Good stage, but we always want to use the summit to sort of push the limits of what's on the horizon and to open people's eyes. So there will still be some robotics there, but we're also inviting the brain-machine interface community to come to the summit. So, most people would know BMI as maybe the most extreme cases, like Neuralink, where you're literally embedded sensors into the brain to help, people who are paralyzed or disabled to regain some kind of mobility or to be able to speak and regain some kind of function. So those are, let's say, the most hardcore use cases. But there are use cases, ranging from non-invasive BMI, where you put sensors on the scalp and basically use AI to try and translate brainwaves into words, into sounds, into commands, whether it's for a video game or to command like maybe a bionic arm or something. And then also using it for treatment of depression, epilepsy, well-being, human performance. So for me, this is fascinating. Because it's technology that's been around for a while, but it's still kind of niche. And, I think part of the role of the summit is to showcase these new technologies and their limitations and capabilities. So I would say on top of the robots, we could expect at least 20 or more brain-machine interface demos. So not just talks with PowerPoint, but actual demonstrations. And we hope to engage media with that on as well.
I see. So you mean like a press conference involving both?
Possibly. I don't want to oversell it, but you could think of it as the world's first telepathic press conference.
Wow, I mean, that would be quite amazing. And I can see things like CNN picking it up or something like that, right? And I think CNN did what, 6 segments on you this year?
Yeah. I mean, Werner Vogels is on there. Actually, a colleague from the FAO was on there. Also, the robotics angle. So it definitely got global news coverage. Actually, I was just in Korea a couple of weeks ago, and I think 20 Korean outlets covered the summit while I was there. And I only knew this because I was talking to people in Korea 2 weeks ago. And maybe another thing I should highlight is obviously with the rise of generative AI and all of the discussions on AI governance and policy and how do you ensure that AI is safe and responsible, the day before the summit we'll have a day dedicated to AI governance and bringing together the WSIS community. So that's basically the development community, which also has a lot of the ministers from our membership. Typically, they'd be in the kind of ICT telecommunications ministry, bringing them together with our AI for Good community, which is really the AI experts and leading industry leaders on AI, and bringing them together in a way to discuss about AI governance in a way that you couldn't do it with us alone or at the summit alone. So we'll probably have a press conference based on AI governance as well at the end of that day. And I think what's interesting there is if you look at all these processes that are happening across the world, whether it was like the EU AI Safety Summit, the Hiroshima process, the EU Act, the White House, China, there's a new kind of AI Security Alliance. You have all these processes happening very quickly in parallel. And what's encouraging is that a lot of them are calling for the same thing, in the sense that everyone wants safe AI, everyone wants ethical AI. Nobody wants bias in data sets. People want security and privacy to be respected. So there's a lot of common ground among all these texts. And what we would try to do at next year's summit is actually look at, okay, what are the things that everyone has in common? Which of them apply internationally? And then more importantly, how can you actually implement these things? Because there's a huge gap between the words, which are very good. I think it's really encouraging that this has moved so quickly across the world in all these different domains. But going from words to implementation, there's still a huge gap. And this is not even talking about developing countries. So in developed companies, in countries, there's a big gap. So how do you implement those words? And then if you look, underlying these texts, there's a lot of technical work that would need to be developed, possibly some standards as well. So if you're looking at things like content authenticity and, watermarking of synthetic media, how do you actually do that in a way that scales and that would actually be useful for some kind of implementation of policy or regulation or standards? Likewise with privacy preserving techniques, how do you handle open source? So all of these more technical topics that would support the high level ambitions of these texts, I think would be covered at the summit. And I think that's just another example of AI for Good has always been very practical and implementation focused. And whether you're talking about the SDGs or responsible AI, I think we could bring the same to that discussion as well.
I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. So first of all, you mentioned WSIS. So what's WSIS?
So WSIS is a process that's about it's 20 years old now. So it's really bringing the development community to around the action lines, which you could almost think of as a precursor to the SDGs. So it has different names and nomenclature, but it's basically tech for good, right? Like, so how do you use technology and information communication technologies to help in a wide range of domains, whether it's education or climate or the environment, digital infrastructure. So it's quite well aligned with the SDGs, which is natural because it came before the SDGs. What's interesting is that they're quite different communities. So here you really have the development community and the civil society community, and it's organized in a very kind of organic, community-based fashion, and then bringing them together with the AI for Good community, which has never been done before. But I see it as a big win-win, and it's actually that combination of audiences that could probably help to advance the AI governance discussions on the 29th of May.
And again, because the audience some of them may never had gone to WSIS, WSIS. What does it stand for?
Yeah, so it's the World Information Society Summit. So it's another summit, and that's correct. I don't think they've met each other before. There's probably some overlap because both events are in Geneva and usually in the spring or the summer. But I think it will be very interesting. Probably the most interesting part is they bring together a lot of the ministers from our membership, which traditionally were not attending the summit in the past. So really bringing that extra layer of discussions from governments and especially from developing countries because as you know, one of the big risks of AI is will it help to bridge the digital divide or actually deepen the digital divide? And that's a concern for ITU, that it's at the core of its mission. It's also at the core of the AI for Good's mission. So I think having those ministers there with a particular focus on developing countries really underscores that the summit is a real global summit and it's inclusive and brings everyone to the table, whether it's artists, NGOs, industry, UN agencies, member states, especially developing countries, because there is this sense that the tech industry is moving so quickly, and you're seeing all these high potential applications, right? Especially for healthcare and education and climate change. But how do you know a high potential AI application works equally well on men or women, or on people of different skin colors, persons with disabilities, or in low resource settings where basic things like connectivity and electricity are real concerns. So these are not things that occur naturally to the fast moving tech and startup industry. It's not like a natural reflex. I think the reflex is more, let's build it quick and we can fix it afterwards. But these are questions that are thought about deeply with the AI for Good community. And I think it's probably the only place in the world where you do have such a big sort of movement around ensuring that AI is not just for the haves or in the developing countries or where you have all the investment in tech, but it also works equally well across 50 or more African countries, if you will. So I think that's where you really have that alignment between WSIS, AI for Good, the ITU, and also all of our UN partners that come to the summit that week.
Okay, so now I'm trying to map this out. The week of the 27th, 28th, you've got WSIS ongoing, right? The World Summit for the Information Society, which also has all of the development community there, Partners to Connect, which is now a $36 billion initiative to bring the digital capability to make it inclusive worldwide. That's part of within that umbrella. And you have all these different communities coming in that week of the 27th, 28th, and that WSIS is running that entire week. You're also running now machine learning workshops that are pre-AI for Good for those who want to get more into the technical details of AI and machine learning, but they're really part of AI for Good in that sense. Mm-hmm. And then you have the day zero, that's sort of the governance day, before the 30th and the 31st, which is the actual formal summit. But really, they're all intertwined in some way.
Right. Yeah. So I think what I'm hoping for is a nice. We were talking about cross-fertilization at the start of the interview. So I think we're aiming for the same thing here, where you have the machine learning workshops, which are expert workshops curated by experts for experts, with us running the entire week. Combining these audiences on the Wednesday for AI governance, and then of course the summit, where you have CEOs and thought leaders and authors and all these kind of headliner type personalities, really specifically on AI, plus all the showcasing and media opportunities. So it's going to be a very busy week. We still haven't seen technology where we can clone ourselves yet. That would certainly be helpful on a week like this. So maybe that'll be for the 2025 summit. We'll start looking at maybe some avatars that can do our work for us.
But earlier, you also indicated that one of the underpinnings of all of this tech that's out there, and especially AI, is to start getting into the sort of the standards behind it. So ITU, maybe you can get in a little bit into who is ITU and are they involved with standards and kind of the history of ITU, and ITU being this International Telecommunication Union, the oldest UN agency.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. And I know you're from Canada, and one of my catchphrases is ITU is older than Canada. So, but that shouldn't be seen in a negative way. I see it in a positive way, in the sense that it was initially set up as probably one of the best and earliest examples of international collaboration. In fact, when they started working on the UN Charter after World War II, they looked at the ITU Charter as a kind of best practice. Like how can you, foster international collaboration? And back then when it was created, it was really to facilitate standards around the telegraph, right? And then you've seen as the decades went by, technology evolved, wherever it was maritime communications, satellite orbits, going from the fixed network to mobile to 3G, 5G, video compression. So ITU has really kept up with the evolution of technology, and a lot of these technologies can develop spontaneously with companies or in different organizations around the world, but some things do need to be agreed upon internationally, and that's where I think the value of ITU has always been. Is so you basically we do three things. One is we harmonize and allocate radio spectrum and satellite orbits. I mean, this is without that you just wouldn't be able to use a mobile phone or any kind of communications at all. In our standard sector, we develop international standards that underpin modern telecommunication networks. A lot of these things are sort of unseen. For example, we allocate numbering resources. So why is USA +1 and Switzerland +41, or you have 1-800 numbers, and you have actually thousands of ranges of numbers for all types of use cases, like emergency numbers or premium numbers, or for IoT, or for even the SIM that might go in your car, which enables you to cross borders and make emergency calls. All these things are allocated by ITU. Video compression, I think the lion's share of the internet traffic is video, and even this call that we're having right now, what allows it to happen is the video compression behind it, which is a ITU standard developed with ISO and IEC. Fiber standards. So the lion's share of the international traffic goes over fiber, also developed by ITU standards. So there's a wide range of standards that basically underpin telecommunication networks. And then, of course, in our development sector, we basically assist developing countries in bringing up their ICT infrastructure through development work, training, capacity building, and basically in a way, applying what's done in the standard sector and the radio sector, taking that technical knowledge and packaging it in a way that could help ministries and regulators in developing countries to basically adapt and keep up with telecommunications, and not only keep up but thrive as well. So that they really rely on ITU for that as well. And it's global. That's the thing. And the thing that's unique about ITU is we're the only UN agency that has 193 member states as members, about 900 private companies as members, and these would be the big telecom operators, equipment vendors, software providers that support telecommunications, and then over 150 academic institutions as well. Many are household name universities.
In addition, at AI for Good, you get like 40 UN agencies coming together as well, right?
Yeah, that's remarkable. I think it's one of the few UN efforts that has virtually every agency in the UN as a partner. So I think there's a few other more specialized agencies that are maybe not on there, but most of the major ones, all 40, are there. And you would have other efforts in the UN that might have 3 or 4 partners, or 5 or 6, but this is one of the few that has all of them. And it's great because they're there to contribute to webinars, to help curate sessions. They're there to basically join forces on collaboration efforts. So, for example, we have an AI for Health global initiative with the World Health Organization. We have AI natural disaster management with WMO and UNEP. AI and digital agriculture with FAO. We work on autonomous driving and road safety with UNECE and the Road Safety Envoy. So ITU is an ideal partner that's at the intersection of business, different kind of industrial verticals, member states, institutions coming from member states, and other UN agencies. And as we advance, you see that you need all those profiles to kind of solve one of these like SDG related global challenges. I don't think anyone can afford to operate in a vacuum anymore. So you do need, ICTs and telecommunications. You need AI. You need the involvement of member states and key institutions in those member states, but you need the input of industry as well, and then of course the relevant UN agency partner, depending on the topic, whether it be healthcare or agriculture or disaster management.
Okay, now let's kind of walk through this. This is going out to an audience and they go, wow, this is really interesting. I want to get involved. So how do you get involved? How do you get involved with WSIS? How do you get involved with AI for Good? How do you get involved? Is there a platform they can sign on to? Can they get there in person? Can they consume it digitally? How do they get engaged?
Yeah. First thing I would say is sign up for our AI for Good neural network. So we built the neural network during COVID because we were doing about 150 online events per year. And at the time, we were just doing them on Zoom. And we thought, well, what a pity. It's great that everyone's joining, but as soon as the call's over, people just disappear again and there's no connection happening, no collaboration, there's no community. So we built the neural network, which I would describe as an AI-powered smart matching community platform. And this is where we have our all content from AI for Good since 2017, but we're doing probably a webinar or online event almost every working day. So it ends up being about 150, I think this year we might be closer to 200 online sessions per year. And the way it works is it's part Netflix. So because there's so much content, we can't expect you to go and browse through like 1,000 webinars. So you build a profile, and based on your profile, you get recommendations on content according to your areas of interest and SDGs that you're interested in. But it's also part like a dating app. So we now have 25,000 members, which is quite phenomenal because when we launched a platform, our KPI was, if we get about 3,000 people, we're doing good. And in just under 2 years, we're 25,000 people from 183 countries. So the dating app function, basically you take a smart matching quiz like I need data or I have data, or I need cloud compute, I have cloud compute, or I need funding, I have funding. That's a popular one. Or I need a mentor, or I need a coach, or I want to collaborate on XYZ. So you take the smart matching quiz, and then your highest percentage matches come to the top, and then there you can connect with them, you can chat with them, you can make calls, you can create groups. So you really have this kind of scaling what would happen naturally at a conference happening online every day throughout the year and every year. And then last but not least, it's also a virtual events platform. So that's where the webinars are hosted every day. You can watch them live or watch them as a replay. And then we have virtual exhibits from our sponsors and supporters. So I would say that's the starting point. It's just to get connected with the community and start to absorb all of the content. But then also you can go to our website, aiforgood.itu.int, and the Summit 2024 landing page is already up. We did a soft launch without barely any promotion. We already have 1,200 registrations after 3 weeks. So I would say hurry up, because for sure it will be oversubscribed. And we haven't even done a press release, which we'll do early next year. So the demand is there. And on our website, you have a contact form. So if you want to speak, or if you have an idea for a project, or if you want to pitch in the Innovation Factory, of course, if you want to sponsor, the whole thing is nonprofit. So we do need sponsors. We would encourage you to join that way. But yeah, I would say go to the website. Well, first create your neural network profile, then go to the website, check out the 24 Summit, and then also go to the contact form if there's any specific asks that you would want to do.
And to attend the summit, they have to register.
Yes. Yeah, that's sure. They have to register. It will be oversubscribed as well. I should mention there's also a VIP option. So the event is free. I mean, it's AI for Good, SDGs, it's a UN, free to attend in person, free online. But if you do want to benefit from some exclusive networking activities, and that's typically where the sponsors and donors and the keynotes and speakers and leaders of the UN would be, you can opt for a couple of VIP option packages, which are proven to be quite popular as well. So I would also encourage that.
Well, we're at the end of this marvelous chat. And do you have any final recommendations, Fred, you want to make to the audience?
I would just say the platform it's a resource for you to use. When I say you, the global community, and it's a real learning resource as well. So if you look at the level of talks that we have online, many of these would feature in a university course, and there's thousands and thousands of hours of content there aligned to all the SDGs. So I would just say, if you want to learn about AI, this is a very good place to start. It's a good place to connect. If you can make it in person to Geneva, I think the summit is unique in the UN system and beyond. And it's really a community. So I would just say join the community and get involved. All we need is expertise, knowledge, good ideas, and it's there for you to leverage. So I would look forward to meeting any of you who are listening in Geneva in May.
Well, thank you again, Fred. I mean, you are Mr. AI for Good. I mean, you do everything, right? So thank you for coming in and sharing your insights and all the opportunities to the audience for ITU and all the initiatives that are hosted by and run by or convened by ITU. And really, the North Star is this AI for Good. It's a meme, right? So, and it really came from this summit. And now it's a global program. Countries have adopted it, corporations, NGOs, and it's just a great benefit to humanity, but a benefit to all and to all Earth ecosystems. And you're at the heart of it. So thank you again, Fred, for coming in.
I appreciate that, Stephen, and thank you for having me today, and also thank you for all your tireless support. For those of you don't know, Stephen has been helping us since the beginning with the program, with outreach, and with media as well, like this interview. So very much appreciated. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.